The following is a live presentation from Oasis City Church, Westerville, Ohio.
Hello, and once again, we're here to talk about issues that are facing each and every one of us. Right now, racism and justice is the topic of the hour, and it needs to be the topic of the hour. We have protests and outrage and violence that's happening all across our nation, but actually, this week, we can see in the last few days, some things are calming down a bit, but you see a lot in legislation and a lot of push to say, hey, we need change to take place. I am Bill Thumalaris. I'm the lead pastor of Oasis City Church here in Westerville, Ohio, which is in the Columbus area. This is my wife, Lynn, and she's joining me again this week. And we are so happy that we have a special guest, and that's Kenneth Watley. He is joining us today. Kenneth, we're so glad that you're here. You're not here just as a black man to talk about a subject, although you are here as a black man to talk about a subject.
Absolutely.
You're here because you're a leader in our congregation, and we honor that. You are not just a leader here in our youth ministry. You have a voice. You are also happen to be a young black professional, a male who has a leader in his community. Absolutely. You happen to be in the U.S. Armed Forces. You happen to be a dad. Absolutely. So there is so many areas that you can talk about. And I'm glad and I'm honored here, not just as your pastor, but I'm honored to be here as your friend because I want to hear what you have to say.
Thank you.
Right.
You've said some things to me just recently that I think, man, everybody needs to hear. Everybody needs to hear what you have to say. So why don't you just tell us just for just a second here, because we're going to go right into a question that just came in.
Okay,
but if you just go tell us, just greet the people. Tell us who you are.
Hello, Oasis. Kenneth Watley. As Pastor Bill said, I'm a youth leader here at Oasis City Church. I think I've been coming here about 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, more than 4 or 5 times, right?
I am a proud father, proud patron of the world, the United States. I serve my country, and I love being here. I don't know if that's enough. Or
no, man.
I don't know how much time I have.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm fully employed by the Ohio Army National Guard.
All right.
I'm an active duty recruiter. I'm hitting my 7th year
of
active duty service and 10th year of being in the Ohio Army National Guard. So.
Well, man, we totally support and honor your service to our nation, as well as just being full-time. I mean, that's big, and you get to be here. And I know that's important to us as a local church, because it's not just that you're somebody that's serving and you're way out there somewhere, but you are right here in our congregation. Yes, I'm thankful that you're here.
We want you to be right here. Right here.
But you are here in our congregation each and every week. I know COVID has its thing, but we're back. But you're on a Zoom call every week with our youth.
And let me tell you, our son speaks very highly of your Zoom calls.
Thank you.
That's true.
He does.
He does.
He told, listen, Dad, Mom, he is awesome. He's doing a
Cullen.
great job. So.
Got you on Cash App, man.
Shout out, right?
Cash App. You know he's going to ask you, too. He'll be like, you said Cash App.
Well, we do want to tell each and every one of you that we are live right now. This has not been pre-recorded and all that. So we want to hear from you. If you have questions, if you have something you would like to say, if you have something you want us to address, you can email the church, info@oasiscitychurch.com. We have moderators looking at that right now. You can just chat on whatever platform you're watching if you have a question, and then they will let us know, and we want to answer that. Last week, we had an in-depth conversation about our experience as an interracial couple. And we had some questions that came in last week that we didn't get to all the answers. And so one of the questions was a pretty, in my mind, a loaded question that we couldn't just answer in 1 minute, Kenneth. So I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
But we're going to put you on the spot.
I feel like we should just come right out of the gates,
accepted.
But this one. So this was a question that came in last week. And I addressed it, Lynn addressed it, and it's something that it deserves more than just a couple minutes, because we have a lot of perspective. We'll probably be talking about this for multiple weeks ahead of time, but I want to read this question. I want to give you an opportunity to speak into it because of a man in your position. And here's the question. It says, why are so many white evangelicals are supporting the president, his actions and comments that we as black Americans see as insensitive, racist, and divisive? So why are so many white evangelicals just kind of pro-Trump, kind of whatever he says, and the fact that Black Americans see some of his comments as insensitive, racist, and divisive. And I know last week, one of my perspectives was, hey, we honor our president, but we can also be smart enough and recognize that some things seem to be out of touch, insensitive, and we don't want to just say, oh, we're just going with the party line here. And so I know that's difficult, even as a pastor of a church of many races. So can I just start off the gate with asking you, what's your perspective on all that?
I just believe that most Americans at heart are patriotic. I think we try to fit in. We try to stand up for our country. We try to have a little bit of even loyalty. I'm in the military, so I stand behind our leaders. I stand behind our president. That's something that, it's inherent in who we are.
Right.
And I think a lot of times with divide, people have to pick a side. When it comes to voting, are you Republican? Are you Democrat? We're kind of taught to pick a side. I feel like right now with what's going on, all the turmoil, people are uncomfortable. And it's hard to say, do I step and stand for something I'm not really sure or I don't understand?
Right.
Or do I maybe do what's comfortable and just stand and just say, hey, we got you, fearless leader. And I think that's a part of reason why it's a lot of it's understanding. I don't think a lot of people understand how insensitive it is because it's not really directed towards them.
Right.
Yeah. We all love children, right? But if you talk about your children, it's specific.
Now
I have a problem.
Now we're on.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of people when they hear him speak, or see the tweets. I think there's moments where you're like, there's no way that's real, and I think it's hard to pick a side because you don't want to come out and say something against it, and then are you not patriotic?
Right.
Do you not support the Constitution? Do you not support the flag?
Right.
The whole kneeling thing was a big controversy just off of misunderstanding. No one's against America. No one's against the flag, but there's some issues we need to work out, and I think that's where a lot of people are picking sides. And unfortunately, we're all together. We're all one body of Christ. We're all one nation. You don't have to pick a side. Let's stand together and work through it.
What's it like with your comrades when you're together in a meeting? I mean, is it a discussion? Is it like, he is our commander-in-chief, your commander-in-chief, specifically.
Right.
What's that discussion like with people of course, male, female, different races in our U.S. Military? What's it like for you in that?
It can be hard to decipher. I can remember being on the street now, people, thank you for your service, and I'm sorry about that man in office. And you get that. And then you get other people that are, very conservative, super, big on, Trump supporters, and that's fine. We try to take the military, foundation, right? We have things on the military: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. So those are our core beliefs.
Right.
So anything that is not based off of that, it's not something we stand by. My supervisor, my direct boss, he's pretty open. He's called me multiple times, like, hey man, how you doing?
That's
check
great.
up on me.
That's great.
We have meetings. We're slowly coming back into work and into the office setting. It's kind of a brotherhood. The camaraderie is amazing. Even the females on our team, we have open discussions. And sometimes it's like, hey man, did you hear that? And sometimes it's like, I don't think that's what was meant. So, you have to be careful because we don't want to, not be supportive.
Right.
But, there are definitely times where it's like, maybe some constructive criticism from some cabinet members or some liaisons would help, it would help. So
I know as a Christian, as a pastor, as a leader, there are certain things, regardless, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, whatever, that I stand for because of the Word of God.
Right.
Yeah.
And I vote for those things. And it is difficult when you have a leader who, I'm happy that there are certain Supreme Court justices or decisions that are made on policy that I feel supports Christianity, supports what I feel is the Word of God and the value of life in America. And there are reasons that we vote on those things, but I can't be somebody who just as a leader says, oh, everything that somebody says is A-okay.
Right, absolutely.
And that's the challenge. But I think we can have conversations without devaluing anyone.
Right.
Obviously, when you get to that point, there's some conversation. What I'd love to do right now is just talk about you, Kenneth. Just tell us about your story, who you are. I know you're. I know who you are.
Right.
But people need to hear about who you are. So just talk about what it's like being you and where you've come from, how you got here.
My family's originally from Cleveland,
Okay.
Ohio. Myself, I was born in Columbus. We moved back to Cleveland when I was young, and then relocated back to Reynoldsburg, which is a suburb of Columbus, when I was about 7. Pretty suburban life. It was. I think there's a lot of things that you go through in life that you're unconscious of, you're unaware of. So growing up, for a large part of my, early childhood I went to school with people that didn't look like me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too bad. I mean, children don't know,
Right.
but it was, you come home, you kind of, things, you hear things, you say things, can you dance? Can you rap? And
of course you can sing.
Yeah, it's intentional.
You can sing, right?
Basketball, like, hey, we got to get Kenny, and
I'm
like,
freaking
hey,
dunk.
Exactly. No, and you kind of get those things, and they're warm-hearted.
Right.
You realize
Right.
they're good intentions, but it's like, you kind of like, I get tired of being the one that has to tell you, hey, that's not okay. For the most part, it was good. As I said, I would go through, school during the summers. I would go back to Cleveland to be with my grandparents. My father was unfortunately incarcerated at the age of 8.
Okay.
So that was tough. So now it's a new dynamic of, still going out in this world that's a little bit different than what you look like, what you're kind of used to, but also coming home and not seeing someone that looks just like you.
Right.
My mother did the best she could to raise me and my sister. She did a phenomenal job, but it's tough because you see a lot of those burdens on her. You see the working 2 jobs. You see the stress from coming home and just trying to make a better life. And then even more so over the summers going to Cleveland. I had cousins and family members that lived inner city. So
Right.
I was humbled enough to see the dynamic difference it made for me as far as education, as far as, speaking. You talk proper,
Right.
even in front of law enforcement. People can almost tell, like, okay, you're good, you're safe.
Just because you spoke different
Yeah,
than someone else.
yeah.
Okay.
You speak white,
Wow, right.
You must have both your parents in your life, things like that. And you begin to realize, especially in the inner city community, it's not so much practice, but people are hurting. People don't have much sometimes, and so it's affecting me that you do, and I can't understand why you have this and I don't. But for the most part, pretty good childhood. As I progressed in school, high school, you start seeing more minorities, things like that. I enjoyed it. I think we talked before briefly on the issues of kind of policing.
Right.
There was an experience I had when I was a freshman. Just had a playground playing basketball with some guys. I think, I'm 14 at the time.
Okay.
Now,
is that here in Columbus or was
it was in Reynoldsburg? It was at one of the,
Okay,
one of the
got it.
elementary schools,
All right.
early 2000s. And this is when you start to kind of step back and go like, maybe there is a little bit something more than,
Okay.
because you kind of have those thoughts to yourself, like, oh, maybe I'm overreacting.
Right.
But I remember there was an incident of a few friends of mine. We were all in high school together at out at a park playing basketball. And there was a kid, white kid who just, today was just the day that he just wanted to express some things he felt.
Got it.
And maybe he learned it somewhere, we don't know. But it was, this, you N-words, you monkeys. My mom had always raised me, it's not what people call you, it's what you respond to.
Right.
So, I kind of just shrugged it off. I was an athlete, so I'd been called out of my name before, wasn't first. But I had a buddy who he was he didn't
didn't
take
like it.
Yeah, he was that type of guy. Like, if you disrespect me or my mother, I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the young man, said too many things about his mother he didn't appreciate. He knocked him off his bike. Long story short, the police were called, and unfortunately, you could tell from just their arrival, it was almost like and I had nothing to do with it. I had nothing to do with it. I definitely explained it to him, but I could tell he was agitated.
Right.
To the point where I was put in the back of a police car,
And you weren't even
and
the one
I
that
was like,
pushed the
hey,
kid off
and I
the
told him,
bike.
like, hey, we were here
Right.
playing basketball. And I'm pretty well spoken. I'm very well mannered. I was raised. Whoever it is, if you speak to an adult outside this household, my mother, you treat them like it's me.
Right.
So I answered his questions, told him who I was, and he was just aggravated because who was the kid? And I'm like, I can't remember his name. And so now I'm at a place in my life where it's like, I'm telling you what happened, but you don't seem to be concerned about all things that happened prior to that. You're trying to go pick this kid up. Thankfully, it ended, peacefully. I was taken home, by the police officer after I told him, like, hey, I don't think you have the right to, ask me questions without my mother here because I'm a minor. He didn't like that, and then I pleaded the fifth. I'm saying, thank God.
Like, you
thank
knew
God
exactly
for
what to
You
say.
did everything.
Wow.
because growing up,
Educate those children.
But it was
right,
one of the
exactly.
first experiences I had where it's kind of like, man, like, did I do something wrong? Like, do I know you? And that's something that has kind of stayed with me as I've gotten older, especially in recent times where you see, some police, acting out in a manner that's not acceptable.
So then you grow up as a black male, you can't change that. You can't
Correct.
change your skin color. Not that you would want to if
Correct.
you could.
Right.
We're just saying, hey, here you are, Central Ohio,
Right.
Mid-America.
Correct.
You're growing up. You're in between two cities a lot.
Yeah.
And then you decided on your own to join the United States military, U.S. Army, National Guard. So what led you to that?
Correct.
And what's been your experience there, especially in the sense of with I mean, we talked about our president and such in that regard and your response, but what has it been like as far as the support that you've have or haven't had in that regard? So what led you to there, and what's it been like?
Well, after graduating Reynoldsburg High School, I attended Mount Union College. I was an athletic training major. It was fun, but college was kind of like, I just did it because I wanted to make my mom proud, right?
Yeah.
Go to, graduate high school, go to college. So my freshman year, it's kind of undecided. Track was fun, but at the collegiate level, it's intense. And I'm not really having fun. Credit hours. So I was trying to look for something a little bit more than just a degree. I mean, I know it's the American dream, but I wanted something a little bit more, significant. So at the time, I had a close friend who had joined, the National Guard. My mother was not really big on military. She was thankful for veterans, but it was not something that we really talked about growing up.
Okay.
So the idea of her only black child, son, going to the military, it was not.
Well, it's probably a little scary.
It was
for
frowned
her.
upon. So
Right. Absolutely.
like-
I can imagine.
So I saw an opportunity for me to do something better. I've always been big on serving. So I'm like, I want to serve in a capacity of something that's bigger than myself. And the military gave me a good opportunity. I didn't see a lot of African Americans or people that look like me in the military. So I said, how about I be a part of the change I want to see? Maybe I can, do something and create something for someone else that's going to come after me. So I joined the military. I just wanted to serve. I wanted to do something better for my family. At that time, I'm married with 2 children. And I just wanted something more than just a 9 to 5. An opportunity to really look back and go, hey, I did something. Me and my father had begun working on our relationship. He did 8 years in the penitentiary.
Right.
So now it's something to say, you know what, Dad, I know you have made mistakes and didn't do right, but I'm going to do right by our last name.
Nice.
I want to be the man that maybe you couldn't aspire to be, and I don't want you to have that guilt of my son didn't make it because of me. So I thought the military would definitely help me, and it did.
Yeah.
Upon joining, as I said, I didn't see a lot of minorities. I joined in 2010 and did training in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay.
And to my surprise, there were a lot of black leadership, something that was surprising but exciting.
Right.
Definitely influenced my mindset and made me realize that maybe my perspective, wasn't right. Like, we are serving, what, maybe it's not true, some of the things that you hear growing up. So that was a lot of what made me want to serve and makes me thankful to be able to serve today.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And let me just segue into this. This is a live program right now, so we have people watching on a lot of different platforms. And we just want you to know that if you're watching this now, this is the kind of conversation that needs to happen.
So we want you to share this with people so they see this kind of conversation happening.
Because if you don't have that modeled, maybe you just need something to spur you on. But you need to be able to have a conversation with somebody of a different race, with somebody of a different background, and just say, tell me your story. It doesn't have to be a battling over an issue that's current news or current events.
But taking sides, like Kenneth said.
Absolutely. Tell me your story. You can hear my story. There's similarities as a white man and a black man here, even just with our fathers in situations that are similar, but yet totally different. And I don't.
And just imagine how the relationship grows when you find out someone who doesn't look like you has still had similar experiences. That I don't have to think that it's just my race or just my race. We've all had stuff that we've had to go through, but we wouldn't know that if we don't talk to each other.
And Pastor Bill, you said something very powerful last week, which gave me some good insight, was when you were talking about, you and Pastor Lynn dating and getting married, the outrage you received with people, disrespecting you for your love for her. And it was crazy because a lot of times, races, it can be one-sided where, I'm black, I'm persecuted. And although that may be true, there are people that are persecuted for trying to do the right thing.
Sure.
You look at the civil rights movement, there were white people arrested and things like that as well. So it was humbling for me to hear that, like you said, although we look different, some of the stories and things you've gone through have been very similar as far as like being racially, talked about or, N-word lover, because of just loving another human being, to where you're like, hey, I don't want to be a part of this. I'm choosing to take a side. I'm choosing to not give in to racial injustice and discrimination. So I think that's kind of right along what you guys were saying with conversation, a talk.
Yeah, and one of the things is, as important as it is, First Amendment rights for protesting, as important as it is to rally, to get people together, and I support that wholeheartedly. One thing is, though, when you're marching with somebody, as much as it's great brotherhood or sisterhood or whatnot, you're not able to really have a conversation.
True.
We're all in this together.
True.
We're going for something, but once that's over, I think even more important, of course, that has a value and a place, and it needs to happen because legislation needs to change. Government systems need to change. Systemic racism economically within cities, and all this needs to change, absolutely. But how much more important is it to sit around a table and talk?
I literally had this conversation with my neighbor today, because she was talking about...
Is that our neighbor or just yours?
Right.
I'm just wondering.
It is our neighbor. But we had this...
I didn't know about this conversation, so I'm just wondering.
This brief conversation, when she was doing gardening in her yard and I was coming home, and she was just checking up, like, how are you doing with all that's going on? And I said, I'm good, having a lot of conversations with people about it. And she said, well, hopefully things will change. And she, mentioned legislation and the president. And I said, honestly, what I'm hoping that there's more conversations amongst people, because legislation has changed before. Desegregation took place.
Absolutely.
But, I was sharing her the story that the Christian school started not because of people wanting to educate their children in a Christian atmosphere, but it was because the government put a policy there.
Right, absolutely.
We need to end segregation. So white Christians decided to start a school that they didn't have to be a part of desegregation.
Yep, absolutely.
So for me, it's all about these conversations, because the government can do all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
But if we as people don't have a heart change, loving each other, talking to each other, no matter what the government does, it's not going to change things at the root.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes our society, we just don't understand. Yeah. I mean, we a lot of times don't go out of our way to find out things that make us uncomfortable. We much rather sit here and I watch the news. Well, that happened there, until something happens and it kind of shakes you a little bit, and then you're, emotionally pulled to go like, why? And I think that's what's really amazing now, is that people are now starting to kind of wake up a little bit. COVID helps, You've been sitting at home, it's like you have no choice. And it's a blessing, that, God is allowing this time, although tragic, to now start that conversation.
Right.
And that's how you really get changes with the heart, because you can have laws, but if the people that are supposed to enforce the laws or make the laws don't have that heart, it's going to be the same scenario, but it looks good on paper.
Right. If you are just now joining us, I'm Bill Thumalaris, the lead pastor of Oasis City Church in Westerville, Ohio, a suburb of Columbus, Ohio. I'm here with my wife, Lynn, and with our dear friend and guest, Kenneth Watley. And we're taking live questions right now. If anything regarding racism and injustice, in our world. We want to shout out to several people who are watching. Ask questions: Frank and Gloria, Mary, Joe, everyone who is sending in comments right now. And breaking news that just came in.
Amazing! This is amazing.
Yeah, this is just hot off the press. I'm just getting notice about this. And maybe we can all talk about this right now. Just came in. NASCAR just banned the usage of the Confederate flag. I mean, just happened right now as we're watching this live. This coming in. What's your response to that? Black woman, black male. I know my response is a white male, and in being married to this amazing woman and having biracial children. But there's an entire large population of the United States who live in the South. What do you think about that?
It's just funny, because I actually had a situation where I really feel like a lot of people don't realize what the Confederate flag really stands for. I think a lot of people kind of think of it as just this, flag represents being a rebel,
country,
a rebel.
Oh, the whole rebel thing. Like, I'm an American, so therefore
And I hopefully NASCAR banning the usage of the flag will help wake some people up. Oh, well, if NASCAR is doing this, it must mean more than what I've always thought it meant.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, breaking news. I mean, you have a thought on that, a comment?
I mean, I agree with it. I think sometimes we downplay how the importance of a symbol can mean or how it's symbolic. But you think about, the swastika.
Right.
No one goes, oh, that just means Germany.
Like,
no,
exactly.
No one.
Come on.
You know what it was used for. The peace sign, right? Peaceful.
Right.
The middle finger, not so much. No one says, oh, it's just a finger.
I wonder what that
right.
means.
You're at the dinner table. One of your kids do it. We have a discussion, right? So, things that are symbols have power.
They do.
And it's so different than if you were to be in an abusive relationship and then
right.
break up with that person and every day come home and see a picture of them.
Right.
It's going to incite some frustration, and I think for a lot of people, that's what it means. And so, if you're upset about it, I mean, you're more than happy to have a Confederate flag in your home. Mm-hmm. But NASCAR can say that, hey, we don't agree, and we're bothered by the fact that of what it stands for.
Sure.
So
I mean, support. And of course, this is not like a topic of conversation that we plan to have or anything, but just now reading that. I go back to as a kid. I mean, poor white kid, didn't have cable, had an antenna with aluminum foil on it. You know what I mean? To get a couple channels. But I do remember watching. What was the show? Dukes of Hazzard. The General Lee. The Confederate flag on the top of that thing, and that. I mean, I remember having a Matchbox toy, with it and such. Not even knowing, nobody tells me what that is. To me, it was just another flag or a representation of the South or whatnot. And we don't even recognize. I mean, everything was cool. That was the coolest car, the coolest actors. I mean, that was the coolest thing. But yet, at the same time, fast forward. And I wouldn't even let my kids watch something like that today. It'd be like, I mean, I would qualify it. Like, wait a minute, hold on a second.
What are you watching?
You need longer shorts, by the way.
And, yes. And my daughter sure as heck. Can I say that on radio or podcast and such, and on live TV? Like, yes, Daisy Duke shorts are out of commission.
We're going to leave those alone.
But isn't it interesting that characters and such, and again, I'm not calling those actors or the producers or anything. I mean, and they may be the most amazing humans on the earth. Right. This is not necessarily about that, but it's just a matter of like, wow, we've just kind of accepted some things that now we have to address and say, have we felt that way all along and weren't willing to even talk about it?
Right.
Absolutely.
Have we just let things go? I'm reminded of this scripture I wanted to share here in the book of Revelation, chapter 7, and in verse 9, it says this: "After this, I saw a vast crowd, too great to count, from every nation and tribe and people and language, standing in front of the throne before the Lamb." Of course, that's Jesus. They were clothed in white robes and held palm branches in their hand, and then it goes on. But here's the description of heaven before Jesus. There is a vast crowd, too great to count. So many people. Just think of every rally. You think of every TV camera, every drone shot. You can't count this crowd. Every nation.
Right.
Every tribe. Tribes within nations. Every people group, every language, standing before Jesus.
All together.
This has always been part of God's plan. God's plan is always every nation, tribe, and tongue. As a matter of fact, He loves variety.
Right.
I mean, He created nations. God is a nation's God. I know that some people are like, they are coming out against nations. No, as a matter of fact, just read your Bible. If you're a Christian, God loves nations. And it's not that He is trying to say one's more important than the other. No, He's divided groups into nations, peoples, tribes, tongues, but they're all equal.
Right.
So He loves the variety. He's not saying one should rule over the other, but He's not wiping it out either, saying, oh, we should all, there should be no, no distinction between nationality. No, as a matter of fact, God is pro-nation. He's a pro-nation God.
It's beautiful.
But the idea is that this is from creation. God has created this from the beginning, and heaven looks like that later.
Wow.
The problem is our churches don't look like that now. Our churches don't tend to celebrate nation, tribe, and tongue. It's like, if you're there and I worship with you and you're next to me, it's cool. You're welcome here. Right. But am I actually sitting across the table?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Am I talking about NASCAR and the Confederate flag with you?
Right.
How does that make you feel? Right. Because there could be somebody who's like, man, my goodness, I grew up with that. I had that flag. And Lynn's, we're on live TV. Yes. We are not going to.
I do not know where this young man is.
We're not going to mention names. But Lynn had a boyfriend whose name was Bill.
I don't really think he was my boyfriend.
Let me just say this part because we have a lot to talk about here. I'm just saying there was another Bill in her life.
Another Bill in my life for a little.
Another Bill in her life. And they went on a date. Let's just say it in 30 seconds so we can move on. But
So he picks me up in his car, opens the door for me, and the back seat is a Confederate flag. Like, it's draping the back seat of the car. And I literally said, I'm not getting in the car with you. And he's like, why? I said, you have a Confederate flag. Well, I said, either you take the flag out of your car or I'm not getting in it. It's up to you.
Like Duke's a hazard? What?
I know. So, it was kind of,
And that was the date?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the date.
There you go.
Yeah.
But, then came along a greater Bill.
The greater Bill came.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
relationship did not really last. I think we went 2 places together.
So we want to move forward here in that. We can talk about the Confederate flag a little bit more later and Lynn's experience with that. But here's a question that's come in. Okay. Again, we're live here taking questions. Yes. So if you have a question, feel free to send it on any platform. We have people moderating this right now to be able to take the questions, submit it to us. But the question is, there's a lot of chatter now about defunding the police. The question basically is, do you agree with defunding the police? Also, do you agree with defunding the military?
Right.
So, hot topic now. Kenneth, you're the guest, so you get the first crack at this thing. What do you think when people say, hey, we should defund the police, we should defund the military, and this is our stance?
One, do not defund the military. I need a job, so don't do that, okay?
Yes, we need you employed.
He's got kids to feed.
Well, I think there's 2 different entities. You talk about the military, that's federal. Right. A lot goes in that. Education, we spend a lot of military funding for education, sending soldiers to get their college degrees.
Right.
Promotions, money. You're talking about food for our troops. So there's a lot of different things. I don't see a major need to defund, the military because, with COVID, we've seen with COVID where the military was put on duty to help run, vaccination places or, pick up the, Corona kits. So the military, has been needed. I think with the police, though, if needed, I can definitely see it. I think Columbus is about to pass a $500 million budget or something like that. I think $4 million might be going to the police. What are you doing with that $4 million?
Right.
I don't think there's a need for military grade weapons. Some of the vehicles they're using, some of these protests are vehicles that the military has used overseas in combat. So I do think there's an issue there. I'm okay with, obviously the police people that's going to protect and serve us. If you're protecting and serving, yes, you should have some money, but I don't see a need for you to have military weapons. We're not about to, do the, Middle East conflict in downtown Columbus. So I do see a need to either look at how that money's being allocated. Are you doing programs for the military for the police to talk to the community? Are you doing like outreach programs to bring in people so we can talk about laws, resisting? So are you educating people or are you just simply, just kind of using money frivolously? So I guess thumbs up, for defunding the police as needed. And Army, do no.
I would agree. Definitely would depend on what are the funds for, because we really do need to look into, are they using some of their funds to help educate police officers on racial issues and how to talk, how to handle these types of situations. So if they're using the funds to help our police officers to be more educated and understand how to work with groups of people, how to, to recognize when they have racial issues that they need to deal with in themselves, those types of things. But if you're saying that some of that money's going to them having like crazy
brand new Chargers, like, do we need
So ultimately, we're saying, if I hear you say correctly, and I personally agree with the idea of reform needs to take place.
If it's money for reform.
If reform doesn't take place, maybe some of this money can be wasted. Maybe it needs to go to other things. Right. But if we could use the funding to reform training, mentality, investigating, hey, you're not a fit here anymore. Right. You're done. Go for another career because we can't trust you policing our streets. If that needs to take place, if there needs to be funding for investigation of personnel, even investigation of policy, then I'm all for it, because reform needs to take place. We're a major city, not just in our state, but we're a major city in the United States. And even Columbus, Ohio, we could be an example. And our police force, in general, can be exemplified, but as well as some of these other cities. But the idea of people saying, defund the police, we don't want police, F the police.
Right.
I mean, do you really want to live in a society, in a neighborhood that doesn't have police? I mean, how long is that going to last?
Right.
How long is it going to last?
Depends where you live. What you have, what you're living with.
That's true. That's true. Some people live a lot longer in that regard than others.
Right.
So, question just came in. The National Guard does riot control. Okay. I mean, he's blazing. I don't know if he'll be a guest again. We're hitting him all these questions. Okay. Did you see any issues at all negatively, or even if you'd like to speak positively, how that was handled, maybe nationwide, representing
in our state, you said, or nationwide?
Or maybe. I mean, I guess you could speak to both. What was your experience here in Ohio? But what was your experience? Did you hear anything, any other places where the National Guard was being used?
Well, I know at least for our state, I have a little bit more insight with our state. I definitely give kudos to Mayor DeWine for acting, governor as he did. I didn't see anything. I was actually out there. The governor encouraged us to go peacefully protest and whatnot. I was not called specifically, but I was able to speak to some of the soldiers that were on ground. And to be clear, with the National Guard, when we're called, it's not to hurt or police the people. Right. It is to strictly ensure that no one, whether it be police or civilians, are being injured. I think a lot of times people see military and think like, oh God, they're here to get us. They're here to enforce.
Martial law.
That's not going to happen. We're strictly there to ensure that businesses aren't being damaged, things aren't being burnt down, but also that the police aren't inflicting pain or anything like that on the people. So from what I saw, it was just presence. We just want people to know, hey, we're here. I did see nationwide there were a lot of National Guard men and women that were speaking with the people. Hey guys, we're here for you. We're paid. We're paid. Your tax dollars. Pay our salaries, and that was good to see. I saw a few just conversations between innocent bystanders, regular people protesting, and the military, and they're like, hey. We're not here to attack you guys. We're here to just make sure everybody's safe, and that was comforting because a lot of times people see military and think, oh, like you said, they're here. Right. They're locking us down.
I'm glad you said that because I didn't realize that was the role of the military. Sure. I don't think people really say that the military is coming to make sure both sides of the issue are playing nice together. I think TV, social media, movies make it seem like when the military rolls in, we're taking control. Right. And now it's all about us and what we're going to do.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there were some news reports. I know National Guard. I know there was a whole big issue in D.C. with the mayor and the president, and get the National Guard out and so on and so forth. But some of the reports that I saw were unarmed National Guard members who were literally painting over graffiti or cleaning up streets, protecting, like you said, being a mediator between two things. It seemed to be something that was very positive, but yet there were people enforcing. We love the fact that the National Guard's here, and then there were some that seemed to say, get the heck out of Dodge. We don't want your presence here because you are a threat to us, or somehow you represent the president, and I am anti-Trump or anti-whatnot, which says you're not welcome here. That might not have happened here in Columbus, but did you see any of that take place?
You see it a lot, and it's in our name, National Guard. Our job is to guard the nation. So we were on call for COVID-19, helping out with that. We've helped out with the water crisis, wildfires. We're there to help support the nation. The Guard falls under the state, so we fall under the governor.
Okay.
So when I talk to students, a lot of times I'm talking to parents about their son or daughter joining the military. Well, the National Guard, true, we do fall, under the president, but our direct is the governor. So we fall under the direct authority of the governor of the state. And we've actually had, some governors refuse to give soldiers towards D.C. There were requests made, by, D.C. for National Guard presence. And we had multiple governors say no. I'm not sending my troops to govern the people.
Got it.
So we're strictly there to provide that, like I said, that peace. Spray painting, whatever it is, not every soldier that goes out there is armed.
Right.
It could be helping. I saw one video of guards members doing the electric slide.
Okay.
Now,
okay,
maybe not what you're being paid to do. However, we are there in support of the community. Yeah. And of course, I get it, military.
Right. Yeah. But you're there. Yes, exactly.
There to support.
You are there
right.
to be with the people in times of need.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
To be supporting them, to make sure that our nation is healed, that our nation is strong.
We've shoveled snow in snowstorms. We're here to help.
So this past Sunday, there was an event. Now coming back to Columbus, Ohio, there is an event called Black Excellence.
Correct.
And it took place at City Hall just a few days ago. Your face happened to be all over social media. I mean, you look so good in that suit, those glasses.
I appreciate it.
And then I read.
I mean, he was all dressed.
Oh, he was all dressed.
I mean,
I read.
He was put together.
Quotes from you and such. So first of all, just tell us about that. Then I want to ask you specifically on something you said about it. So tell us, hey, what's Black Excellence event?
Awesome. So just excellence is defined as the quality of being outstanding.
Yeah.
Just
the
being
quality
great.
of being outstanding.
So growing up as a minority, I'm familiar with some of the stereotypes. I've heard it. Black men are thugs, right? You see an unarmed man is killed on TV. Well, he was a criminal, right? So there seemed to be a misconception. A really good friend of mine, Matthew Brown, he's also a service member. We're just kind of just talking and praying, like, hey, what can we do to just, be the change that we're asking for? Because a lot of times, if you talk, you tweet about it, people don't take you serious.
Right.
So let's show the world. Let's stand in front of people and say, hey, we're owning up to our community. We're owning up to the injustice. We're saying that, hey, enough's enough. And we want to stand for Black excellence, being outstanding and of good character. We see that a lot with Black men. We do in the community. I know a lot of Black, preachers, bishops, lawyers, doctors, clothing designer, business owners that are law-abiding citizens.
Right.
So we had been talking, and he actually put me in a group chat with his pastor, Michael Young, who's talked
good
here.
Friend, great guy.
Awesome man of God. And he and Bishop Clark, Timothy Clark with First Church.
Yep.
Amazing man.
It was like confirmation.
Best voice in
oh my God.
all of
it's
preacherhood.
Exactly. He just got one of those amen,
I mean to tell you.
So they
get saved just hearing him to give a welcome
absolutely.
prayer.
Like the anointing is there. So myself and Matt have been talking, and we get into this group chat with them, and it was like confirmation. They were on the exact same kind of wavelength, so to speak. So we have been praying about it. It was on a Thursday, and we were kind of more so responsible with the younger, the younger crowd. Sure. So they came out with a digital flyer Thursday, and I mean, we went to Instagram, Facebook, and we got a lot of positive responses. And the whole point was, hey, Black men, let's come together, let's dress nice, let's be who we are, right? If you're going, to celebrate a birthday or something like that, or an anniversary, you're going to dress up to feel good. And we just wanted to encourage that. Right now, I know our nation is kind of confused on what's going on. So let's stand. Let's be the Black men that we know we are. Let's be the mentors we want, our children to see. Let's be our superheroes, right? Not all superheroes wear capes. So let's come together and show a display of what we see when we wake up. Because maybe America doesn't see it. Maybe America has not seen enough well-dressed Black men. So
that's so good. And you even had your son as a part
of it,
correct?
Yes, I did.
How old's he?
Cameron's 11.
11 years old?
He gave me the look, like, do I have to wear a suit? Like, you don't have to. And I showed him, like, the pictures. What's funny is I showed him the pictures of, like, Martin Luther King. Like, you guys learn about this. And I get it. He kind of cared. He'd rather play Fortnite. But I'm like, listen, we're going to make history.
Right. Come on.
And sure enough, I'm like, hey, like, this is important. Like,
that is so good.
As a man, you need to stand for something. Like, of God, like, we are good people. Let's stand and go do that. And sure enough, we got some.
I loved it because there was some great photos. Again, pastors that I respect very well. Some are personal friends of mine. They're there, and I thought it was an amazing and a beautiful thing.
The mayor came.
And the mayor came, And the fact that you guys put that together on a short notice,
I'll tell you what,
yet it was so well
and what I really loved about it was, a lot of times, movies, TV, music, there's one look for the black man,
it is.
right?
Yep.
And so kids growing up not really having role models seeing that they can be more than just a kid on the street.
More than an athlete.
More than an athlete.
You don't
a
have
musician,
to be an athlete.
Vocalist.
Right. Yeah.
Wonderful businessmen and out there showing that you can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor, you can be anything you want to be. I thought that was just powerful.
Yeah, it was great. We're also doing another one this Sunday. 5 o'clock for women.
Yes.
All right.
So the first was, as black men, we want to be pillars in our communities, but we also want to be supportive of black women. We know they deal with a lot, if not more so than black men. We know that women in general have gone through a lot in this country to fight for their right to be at the table.
Sure.
And we're seeing that now. So it was starting off like, let's start with us first. Build up, and then we're also going to open up to, not even open up, everyone's encouraged to be there. But we just wanted to focus on just encouraging the people of the community as we brand
So where are they meeting? So if you want to be a part, is it 5 o'clock?
At City Hall again. It's going to be 5 o'clock. The actual address here is...
he's got it.
He is ready.
I mean, that's good. We love it.
And ready with the address.
Scrolling across the screen, but...
Columbus City Hall, 90 West Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43215.
And that's Sunday at what time?
It is at 5 p.m.
Sunday at 5 p.m. If you're a black woman, you need to be there at City Hall and be in support of that.
And you do not have to just be a black female.
Oh, like you don't?
It's not. It's not. We just want to have a
anyone in support of black women. If you're a female, be there.
We had our white brothers or light brothers out there, march with us as well. And it's important. We just wanted to show the world that, hey, we're not expecting you to do something. It's a collaboration, right? We too stand behind what we're saying. We're not saying, hey, America, go fix this. No, we stand with you, America, to fix it together.
So, that's beautiful.
One of the things you said, and it was quoted, I'm going to quote you from the news quoting you, it said, I also want to see more programs where young African Americans can learn about law enforcement. Can you just talk about that for a moment?
Absolutely. Growing up in school, I didn't know, what. If you're pulled over, how do you respond? There's a lot of things in the news, like don't resist. The hands up, don't shoot. There's so much that we as Americans don't know, but especially inner city. I mean, you're kind of almost not necessarily taught, but it's something you're aware of that for some reason, police officers don't like me. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Whether you've gotten a traffic ticket or you've witnessed the police mishandle situations. There seems to be a very tough issue in the community, especially the black community with policing. So I definitely think if we're talking about budgets, the police should have a budget to where these police officers are actually in the community, in the classrooms, not here to arrest you or to intimidate you, but I'm here to talk to you.
So in our neighborhood, I love this. So our police in Westboro, where we live, if they see any child on their bike with a bike helmet on, they give them Dairy Queen ice cream,
awesome.
Or some
type of like, just so that they're constant. So when they see a police officer,
positive reinforcement.
Like I'm a good ice cream. It's just they don't, so that they won't see a police officer and automatically think it's gonna be bad. And just anything like that can just build a bridge in a relationship, so that when a black child sees a police officer, it's not automatically negative, but they're there to help me too.
I mean, how cool would it be for a student, maybe you're on honor roll, like you get to go with a police officer for a day. In the front seat, right? You get to go travel with him, just a day in the life. Nothing, dangerous, but to say, hey, how's school going? Just, wow, you are a human being. There's a heart behind the badge. Go out for lunch, come back, and then now that kid is excited. I'm telling my friends about this officer who let me be a part of his day, who said, hey, you're important enough for me to take out.
You're valued. And see, that's part of the reform that we're talking about. What if dollars were spent to really reinforce and bless and encourage the relationship between officers and children, and then teenagers, particularly teens, to be able to say, hey, I know how to respond. I know how to just react to an officer that's walking up to me. I don't have to run immediately. I don't have to do this. I don't have to hide. I can be well spoken. I can relate. I have something to relate to other than what TV shows me. And unfortunately, true true news media that shows brutality and such, that just says, hey, the police are against you, not for you. This is where that reform has to happen. And as Christians, we have to be the forerunners, saying, hey, listen, we've got to be standing as churches and as Christians to say, we support our police, we support our our parishioners, our people, and most of all, we support somehow this unity and this blending and this support that we have one for another. So the one of the statements that came in just recently said, good intent doesn't excuse bad behavior. Good intent doesn't excuse bad behavior. And it came in a little bit earlier in response to what we're saying about tweets and such, where I have intentions on one thing or policy, but my behavior is saying otherwise. And I think that everybody now, right now, at least in these couple weeks, have been able to have an opportunity to recognize that there's intentions out there that are good, and it's a policy and it's a statement on a piece of paper. But come on, man. Like, if you can't back up your words, particularly in the Christian world with a Christ-like attitude, and that's why these discussions are so important. And once again, I just want to tell you, if you're watching us now, we're not going to be on much longer, but the importance of discussion, the importance of having conversation, the importance of talking about tough issues without trying to be right. The idea as Christians, we're not out there trying to be right. We want to be reconciled. We want to be reconciled with our brothers and sisters. We want to recognize that we are called as Christians to reconcile people to the Lord. And that's the priority that we have. We want to be reconciled with our brothers and sisters, particularly in Christ, and be able to model. They will know we are Christians by our love for one another. Lynn, just talk about briefly here. We gave an action step, and last week our action step was to meet with somebody of another race for just to talk. So I want to hear from you, first of all. If you did that, we want to hear about it. Please type it in. Let us know in the comments section.
Well, I made it clear last week that I would probably check in on people. So what I did was I made it a point. Did you do? Well, what I made a point of, I do a women's coffee group of women from our church. And so I made this part of our discussion. So they were kind of, they got stuck in a conversation, whether they wanted or not. And I broke them up into groups and made sure those groups were not only different races, but different age groups. And it was beautiful because every time I would go to a different group, they were really in deep conversations. And I just thought it was just so special because they were hearing stories from each other, whether they're white or black, where they had experienced racism and what it meant to them. And one of the young ladies just broke my heart because she was talking about where she grew up. And she said, I graduated in 2012. And when I graduated, they still had 2 different homecoming courts and prom courts, a black one and a white one.
Dang.
2012.
Not here in Ohio, right?
Not here in Ohio.
Lord, Jesus.
And she was just like, oh my gosh.
But this is 2012.
Wow.
2012, just 8 years ago. But in these conversations, I'm just watching these women find healing as they're having these conversations with each other. And it is just a fact that if we begin to have these conversations, healing can really come, because that's when heart to heart can come together. And I had a couple other people having conversations that they came back to me and sharing the different conversations they had with someone else. And I really know that it is time that we do see healing take place. And it's not going to happen top down. It's going to happen side by side. That's where that healing is going to take place, side by side. Me coming together with someone who I didn't grow up with, I don't look like, and listening and talking and sharing life together. It's just a beautiful thing.
One of the things I appreciate about you, Kenneth, is the fact that you're a youth leader here in our church. So you're not just here as a military guy. Right. Hey, by the way, ladies, this man is single, 32 years old. He's available. He's a great father.
Him to do this.
He's a great youth leader. I mean, yeah, get everything all ready. I mean, he's going to have some comments coming in. But you're single. I mean, you're a family guy, single dad. But you're not just a military guy. You're not just somebody marching on the street in a suit that looks great. You're not just well-spoken. You're not just all that. But you volunteer your time and invest in teenagers.
Right.
And invest in them to show them how to grow up as a young woman and man in following Jesus.
True.
And so just talk briefly about that and why you even do that.
It was a calling on my life. I mean, since the age of, I think 6, I had someone like just speak over my life and just speak about the youth. You know, I actually first started coming to Oasis. I was like in a rough time of God, of like, God, where do you want me to be?
Right.
And I was asking God so much that he was like, hey, shut up and listen. I'll tell you. And so I was in a place, came here. It was like family. I think initially, Pastor Lynn called me out. It was just,
she called you out.
I'm automatically led. I think it was Cullen. I think we were out, and I was coming from like training. I brought my kids here, and I was just interacting with them. I think it's important for me to know, like, hey, we're adults, but we care about you.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I'm not paid to be here. I want to be here. And Pastor Lynn's like, oh, we found somebody to help out with the youth, and I was like, oh. And God was like, hey, you wanted to know where you wanted to be, right? I answered
no, it is not my fault. She called
me out too when I was like 17 years old.
It's not my fault that I hear from the Lord and I speak it out.
Yeah. And I couldn't even deny it. I was like, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And I said, and then I said, so the youth meets at 7 on Wednesday. I want to see you here next week.
Yeah. I've never sang in my life before. She called me out. She said, we need you to help out with the boys choir and the thing. I was 17. I was like, what the heck?
Yes.
Right.
But that's amazing. And I just want to honor you for that. I want to honor you for who you are, what you do, why you do it, because you're making a major impact. I'm going to close with this because we have to recognize as Christians that we're called to be healers.
Yeah.
And we need to be a representative of Jesus. And so Isaiah 58 verse 12, there's this great passage of scripture. I don't have a lot of time to preach on it, but I do want to deliver it to our audience today. Those from among you, so just say that's me.
Those that are among you.
No, just say that's me.
That's me.
Yeah,
oh, that's me.
Yeah, just
sorry.
say that's me.
Yeah, I was with
those
you.
from among you. Those from among you will rebuild the ancient ruins. You will raise up the age-old foundations, and you will be called, ready for this, the repairer of the breach, the restorer of the streets in which to dwell. And I think right now as Christians, we're called to be the repairer of the breach.
Yeah.
There's brokenness that we are called to repair. We are also called the restorer of the streets in which to dwell.
Really
the streets have so much pain. And God talked about this years ago, thousands of years ago in Isaiah through that prophet, and it's speaking to us today in the United States of America. We are called to be healers in our streets. We're not called to be dividers. We're not called to be social media. I'm on one side, you're on the other. We are called to sit at tables, to have conversation and say, how do we go heal the streets? How do we go repair brokenness? It's bridges that have been broken. How do we go repair the broken streets, the broken bridges in the United States? And we're focused right here in Columbus, Ohio. And I want to encourage you that. If you want to find out more about Oasis City Church or how you can be a repairer, you can be someone who's restoring, text more OC to 94000.
Or if you're someone who needs restored, you need healing. You know, we have many people who will want to pray for you, be there for you. So
if you have a need at all, a prayer request, anything, that more OC, you can connect with us on any level. If you want to date Kenneth, you have to go through an application process, but you still got to text
believers only.
More
believers only
to 94,000 and believers only. Yeah, yes. Female believers only. But we also want to tell you that this week's we have new service times.
Yes.
Come on, we are reopening as a church. We're so happy about that. We are live. Let me tell you this. We are live Saturdays at 6 p.m. on all platforms, our website, all social media, YouTube and such, starting on Saturday night at 6 p.m. We're actually live in the building here. You can register online. You can find all that information out on our website and social media platforms. You can register online to come to a service live.
Yes.
Then those services are rebroadcast at 9 and 11. Trust me, we will be there live as well with you on social media. We have great hosts and moderators who want to connect with you and talk to you. But we want to let you know that things are changing here, and we will see you this weekend, Saturday or Sunday, at oasiscitychurch.com. Just find us on social media. We love you.
And thank you so much for tuning in, being a part of this conversation, for taking this to your neighborhoods, because we know that it takes all of us. We're in this together.
And share this. Amen. Do that right now. Share this conversation so people can see what a conversation really looks like.
That's right.
Thank you, Kenneth, for being with us.
Love you guys both.
Man.